What we're trying to do here is amend the budget for the current fiscal year that we're in. It'd be October 1, 2012 to September 30th, 2013. The budget amendments amount to $4.3 million. Well, I better say the exact amount: $4,327,705. There are several reasons for the amendments, and I'll go through them individually. Some are grants. We received a $9,000 child safety seat grant, and then a federal grant for $20,100 for safety communication computer equipment. And then left over from the 2012 fiscal year was lots of projects and monies that we received that weren't expended in 2012, that staff were in the middle of projects, and a few things that wanted to be also requested to be carried over. The first one was the Runberg Lecture Group. They had a project of $1,330, and they requested that be carried over for the purpose of historic preservation, and that's in the general fund. The police department had a pole building built, and it didn't get done in time. It was a $30,000 project, and about half of it got done, so we need to carry those funds over. Also, there was $60,855 in Whitcom equipment that needed to be for radio base stations that would communicate to Whitcom, and so that needed to be carried over. Other project types of carryovers included a pavement management system for $50,000, a street project for the maintenance program for $23,365, $30,395 money set aside for sidewalks, and it was monitored in the capital projects fund, so we needed to transfer that over to them. The Hamilton Fund had dedicated $5,000 in its part for the Harold Street sidewalk project over by the ice rink. The Walmart project was $18,695. It needed to be carried over into this year.
Explain the Walmart project, just enough for the public to understand.
I refer to that, I should say it's not a project of Walmart's. They gave us some $18,695 towards a project for the improvements out by Walmart.
Sidewalk improvements.
Sidewalk improvements. And so that money was set to us, and in last year's budget needed to be carried forward into this year. I already discussed the pole barn building for the police department. The police interceptors was the first two. It took some while to get the equipment on board, so it took forever to get that equipment. And so because of the new cars were being phased over from Crown Vics, thank you. And so now they're the new cars that are retrofitted this year, so they got the parts this year to do that. And that was the first two cars we ever received in the new version. And then $60,000, $60,855 was for the installation. I already mentioned the data link. Bond refinancing was the certificates of participation that we had refinanced to save the city about $800,000 over the course of the Hamilton Indoor Recreation Center certificates of participation. So we needed to provide funding for both the transfer from the Hamilton Fund and to the Parks and Recreation Fund, which is where the debt is recorded. So it needs to show up in two places. So that's $2,223,960. And finally, I think that's about it. Nope. And then there's some miscellaneous stuff that happened during the course of the year. Street crew had an opportunity to buy from the city of Rexburg I call it the new Berminator, but it's actually what is that thing, Gary, called? It's a gravel escalator thing, but they use it for force feed loader.
Yeah.
Because they've improvised it into being a snow removal for berms, and it's worked really well. Well, it's a newer one than the older one we had. The $1,500 from a donation for canning education for farmers market came from the Ball brand fresh preserving products, and it's used at farmers market for education. Farmers market revenue, because of moving it from Jackson Street parking lot over to the Main Street, has increased both the cost and the revenue. So it's caused a lot more time to be involved. Got $6,200 in higher revenue and $800 in market expansion as a result of that part-time wages from opening up at 5 a.m. for street closures. And then art program had initiated a new 30-30-30 for the first time this year, and it exceeded the budget and revenue by $6,500. And so that $6,500 was offset against an array of arts expenses like postage and staff and miscellaneous charges for the Visa machine. I think the Visa machine actually helped make it a success because people saw the art and had budgeted maybe 1 or 2 pieces, and people like Don Palmer bought 6 of them. So then
have you got those hung yet?
Pardon me?
Have you got them hung on your walls yet?
No, I've got a budget for the frames. Council accepted a donation from the Moscow Friends of the Library, a generous donation for $50,000 for the library expansion. That also needs to be included. And then lastly, the street department needed to enhance some sidewalk participation monies because of that program being a large success. So we needed to budget for the reimbursements of that revenue plus the $10,265 for the street to enhance the sidewalk participation from street funds. So there was a transfer from streets that they wanted to make because that's been a highly successful program as well. And that's it. And that totals $4 million. And there's an ordinance before you that outlines how that's split out by funds. And so the original budget is $61,210,265. I'm asking the City Council tonight to amend the budget by $4,327,705 to a total amendment of $65,537,970. It has been published in the newspaper twice, as required by state law, and ready for public hearing.
Thank you, Don. Any questions of staff before we hold this public hearing? Appreciate your report. So the notice and the gist of tonight's hearing will be to open this fiscal year's budget for consideration of amendment and amendment of the appropriations ordinance. And so the way we conduct these is to first invite the citizens to come forward and to state their name and address for the record and let us know what you think. It's unlikely that somebody will be entirely for or entirely against all of this, but speak to it as you may choose to do. With that, I'll open the public hearing and invite testimony about the proposal to open this fiscal year's budget and to consider the appropriations ordinance for amendment. Okay, seeing no one come forward, then I'll close the public hearing and open it up to the council for discussion. Council members? Walter?
I'm pleased to see this process. When I first got on the city council and some of my questioning about how the budget worked and all that kind of thing, if memory serves me correctly, the city had got in the pattern of budgeting for grants that they might get or thought they might get and other things. And I kind of railed against that, saying, if you don't know you're going to get them, you shouldn't be budgeting for them. You can always open the budget and correct the budget if you're lucky enough to get a grant. And that seems to be the case in a few of the small items here, the canning grant and a few other things. So I have no problem. I think this is a good process. It puts a little more work probably on Don to do it this way, but he can handle it.
Okay. Would you like to put a motion forward? Yes, Tim.
If Walter doesn't want to, I will.
Please, go ahead.
All right. Well, I'll move that we amend ordinance 2012-15 because of the
Right, it won't have a number, well, okay, go ahead.
Aren't
Go
we
ahead.
amending the 2012 ordinance?
Yes,
Well-
you are.
12, right.
Yes.
Did I say 12?
You said 12, and you said 15, and she said
Well,
14.
but the number is 2012-15.
Okay, go
Trying to
ahead.
stay with us.
Yes, go ahead.
Close?
Yes, you are.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm just reading here. Anyhow, we'll amend that ordinance.
Whatever it
If it's not right on the paper, I'm in
We're
trouble.
going
all
to amend the
right.
darn budget.
Okay,
Because of the unallocated fund balance carryover due from authorized expenditures or unexpected allocated revenues created by the certificates of appreciation and all the other reasons Don cited, the refinancing, the grants, the donations, and the additional revenue due to the sales. So I'll move that, and that it be done under suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, and that it be read by title and published by summary.
Second.
okay, we have Tim's motion, we have Sue's second. Any discussion of that? Okay, hearing none, we'll start the roll call vote with you, Tim.
Aye.
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 Okay, that motion carries. So now we have ordinance number 2013-14, an ordinance of the City of Moscow, Idaho, a municipal corporation of the State of Idaho, amending ordinance 2012-15, the appropriation ordinance for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2012, and ending September 30, 2013, to appropriate monies in the sum of $65,537,970, and providing for this ordinance to be in full force and effect from and after its passage, approval, and publication according to law.